I got a bank alert saying $30,000 was withdrawn from our joint savings. My fiancée told me it was for a family emergency. 3 days later, I found wedding photos online. She used our house fund to secretly marry another man while still engaged to me. What followed was a lawsuit, public lies, and the hardest year of my life. But losing her forced me to rebuild myself stronger than ever. If you're new here, hit that like button and consider subscribing. This is a story about trust, betrayal, and finding yourself again. And honestly, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to write, let alone live through. My name is Mark, and this is what happened when the person I loved most in the world took everything, and I mean everything, and used it to build a life with someone else. It started with a notification. You know the kind. The dull ping from your banking app that you usually swipe away without a second thought. It was a Tuesday, a completely unremarkable Tuesday. I was at my desk, knee-deep in a spreadsheet that refused to balance, my third cup of coffee going cold beside me. I picked up my phone, more out of a need for a distraction than anything else. The notification said, "Withdrawal alert. $30,000 from joint account 1234. For a solid 10 seconds, I just stared at the screen. $30,000. That was our number. Our safety net. The money we had scraped and saved for 3 years, ever since Elena and I got engaged. It was for a down payment on a house, for our future. It was every canceled date night, every "let's just cook at home," every late shift I'd picked up, every extra freelance project she'd taken on. It was our dream, digitized and stored away. My first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion. Panic, even. Had we been hacked? Was this some kind of sophisticated fraud? My heart hammered against my ribs as I immediately called Elena. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again, and again. Nothing. Then, a text message from her popped up. It was short, almost clinical. "Hey, so sorry. Huge family emergency. My mom's really sick. Had to take some money from the joint account for a flight and some medical bills. We'll explain later. Don't worry, it's under control. Love you. Family emergency." Her mom was sick. The wave of relief that washed over me was almost physical. It wasn't fraud. It wasn't a hack. It was just a crisis. I immediately felt guilty for my initial panic. Of course, she would take the money. That's what it was there for. That's what we were for. I texted back, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Is she okay? What happened? Do you need me to come? Where are you?" I didn't even question the amount. Medical bills in this country are no joke, and a last-minute flight across the country could easily cost a fortune. Her reply was vague. "She's stabilized for now. I'm at the hospital. It's all a bit chaotic. I'll call you when I can. Don't come, focus on work. I've got this. Love you." I spent the next 2 days in a state of anxious suspension. I called her multiple times a day. Most went to voicemail. The texts I got were brief, infrequent, and felt off. They were the kind of texts you send when you're trying to convince someone everything is fine, not when you're actually living through a crisis. They lacked detail. When I asked which hospital, she said she'd text me the name later and never did. When I asked for an update on her mom's condition, she'd say the doctors are running tests or she's resting. It was all so generic. I started to get a knot in my stomach, a cold, hard ball of dread that no amount of rationalizing could dissolve. I remembered the $30,000. It wasn't just a number. It was concrete. It was real. I decided to do a little digging of my own. I called her mom's house. No answer. I called her mom's cell phone. It rang and rang, then went to a generic voicemail box that wasn't even set up. That was strange. Her mom, Patricia, was a bit of a Luddite, but she always answered her phone, especially if it was family. Then, I did something I'm not proud of, but in retrospect, it was the only thing that saved me from a lifetime of ignorance. I logged into our joint account online, not just the app. I wanted to see the full transaction details. The withdrawal was made as a cashier's check. A cashier's check. That detail hit me like a punch to the gut. You don't get a cashier's check for a flight or a hospital copay. You get one for a large, guaranteed payment. A down payment on a car, a house, or, as my increasingly frantic mind started to whisper, a wedding. I started scrolling through our old messages, our photos, our memories. Everything seemed normal, happy even. But then I started to notice things I had willfully ignored. The late nights at work that had become more frequent over the past few months. The way she'd sometimes flinch when I touched her. The new girlfriend she'd mentioned, Sarah, who she was suddenly spending all her free time with. I'd been so happy she was making new friends that I never questioned it. I never questioned anything. The breaking point came on the third day. I was a wreck, unable to sleep, unable to eat. I was refreshing social media, hoping for a clue, any clue. That's when I saw it. It was a post from a mutual friend, a girl named Chloe we knew from college. The post was a photo from a wedding. A beautiful, outdoor wedding with fairy lights and wildflowers. The caption read, "The most magical, intimate wedding for two of my favorite people. So happy for you both. Hashtag secret wedding, hashtag just married, hashtag love wins." In the photo, the bride was laughing, her head thrown back, a simple white dress swirling around her legs. The groom was dipping her, a huge, triumphant grin on his face. The bride was Elena, my fiancée. The groom was a man I didn't recognize. The world didn't just stop. It shattered. Every molecule of air left my lungs. I felt like I was falling, a slow-motion plunge into a bottomless pit. I zoomed in on the photo, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely control the screen. It was her. There was no doubt. The same smile, the same dimple in her left cheek, the same way she crinkled her nose. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, a dress that probably cost a good chunk of that $30,000. I clicked on Chloe's profile. There were more photos. A few from the ceremony, a few from the reception, which looked like it was held in a rustic barn. There was a photo of a cake, a simple, elegant two-tiered cake. There was a photo of a sign that said Mr. and Mrs. Evans. Evans. His name. I didn't even know his name. I scrolled through the comments. People were saying things like, "So happy for you, Elena, and you two are perfect together, and best secret ever." I felt a wave of nausea, so powerful I had to run to the bathroom. I knelt on the cold tile floor, my head spinning, and I vomited. It was a purely physical reaction to a psychic wound. When I was done, I just sat there, my forehead resting on the cool porcelain of the toilet bowl, and I wept. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I wept for the lost money, for the lost dreams, for the 3 years of my life I'd given to someone who was capable of this. But most of all, I wept for the version of me that still existed an hour ago, the one who was worried sick about his fiancée and her sick mother. When I finally got a hold of myself, a strange, cold calm settled over me. The shock was wearing off, and in its place was a hollow, burning anger. I needed to know everything. I went back to Chloe's photos and started looking for clues. The venue was tagged, the rustic rose barn. A quick Google search showed it was a popular wedding venue about 3 hours away, in the next state over. The date on the photos was from 2 days ago, the same day she sent the family emergency text. I did more digging. I found the groom's profile. His name was David Evans. He was handsome, I guess, in a polished, curated sort of way. His profile said he was a real estate entrepreneur. It was full of photos of him in suits, at fancy restaurants, on tropical vacations. He looked like he had money. So why did he need my $30,000? That was the question that would gnaw at me for weeks. I didn't confront her yet. I was too devastated, too raw. I just watched. I watched as she continued to send me sporadic, generic texts. Mom is doing a little better. The doctors are optimistic. So tired. Hospital life is draining. Talk soon. She was crafting a whole other reality, a detailed fiction, while living her actual reality as a newlywed. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. For days after the wedding, she came home. I heard her key in the lock, and I felt that same cold calm descend. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, the lights off. She walked in, dropped her bag, and let out a long, theatrical sigh. "Mark? Oh my God, I am so exhausted," she said, her voice dripping with feigned weariness. She flipped on the light and jumped when she saw me. "Jesus, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" I just looked at her. She looked radiant. She had a tan. A tan. From a hospital vigil. She was wearing new clothes I'd never seen. Her hair was different, a new, expensive-looking cut. "I asked you a question, Mark. Are you okay? You look awful." She came and sat down on the coffee table in front of me, reaching for my hands. I pulled them away. "How's your mom?" I asked. My voice was flat. "Dead. She's much better. It was touch and go for a while, but she's stable now. She's resting at home. The doctors think she's going to be fine." She delivered the lines perfectly, with just the right amount of relieved exhaustion. "That's good," I said. "That's really good. Because I called her house today. And your mom answered. She sounded perfectly healthy. She was planting her garden. The color drained from Elena's face. It was like watching a tide go out. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. For a moment, just a moment, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Fear? Shame? It was there, and then it was gone, replaced by a mask of confusion. What? That's impossible. You must have spoken to someone else. My mom can't even talk on the phone for long. Her breathing is still so weak. Elena. I said her name softly, sadly. Stop. I pulled out my phone, opened the photo of her wedding, and held it up to her face. The screen illuminated her features in the dim room. She stared at it. The mask of confusion crumbled, not into shame, but into something else. Exasperation. As if I were being unreasonable. Oh, she said simply. Oh, I repeated, incredulity finally breaking through my cold calm. That's all you have to say? Oh, you drained our joint account, our future, for a secret wedding to another man, lied to me for a week about a fake family emergency, and all you can say is, oh? She stood up, pacing now, her hands waving in the air. You have to understand, Mark. It's not what you think. It's literally a picture of you marrying another man. What else could it possibly be? It's complicated, she said, her voice taking on a defensive edge. David and I, we have history. We were engaged before, years ago. It ended badly. But we reconnected a few months ago, and we realized we never stopped loving each other. It was a cosmic thing, you know? A pull we couldn't ignore. A cosmic pull. I laughed, a hollow, broken sound. You're telling me you threw away a 3-year relationship, our entire future, for a cosmic pull with an ex-boyfriend? And you funded it with our money. She stopped pacing and faced me, her chin lifted in a semblance of defiance. The money. I needed it. David is going through a tough financial patch. He's between deals. His credit isn't great. We couldn't get a loan for the wedding. It was a small, private ceremony, exactly what we both wanted. I knew you'd never understand. And I knew you'd never agree to just give me the money. So I took it. It was half mine anyway. Half yours. I stood up, finally, my anger boiling over. Half of it was yours, Elena. Half. That's $15,000. The other half was mine. You stole $15,000 from me to pay for your secret wedding to another man. It's not stealing. We were a partnership. What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine, right? Isn't that what we always said? Her eyes were wide, pleading, as if she genuinely believed her own twisted logic. I was speechless. The sheer audacity, the complete and utter lack of remorse, was breathtaking. I had never seen this person before. This woman standing in my living room, defending her betrayal with the rhetoric of our love, was a stranger. You need to leave, I said, my voice quiet and trembling with rage. Right now? Take your things and get out. Mark, please, let's just talk about this calmly, she said, reaching for me again. I flinched away. There's nothing to talk about. You got married. To someone else. While you were engaged to me. You stole from me. You lied to me. It's over. Leave. She opened her mouth to argue, but something in my eyes must have stopped her. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, she shrugged. She actually shrugged. She walked over to the hall closet, grabbed a duffel bag, and started throwing things into it. Clothes, shoes, her laptop. She didn't even pack properly. It was like she was checking out of a hotel she never intended to return to. In 10 minutes, she was gone. No goodbye? No, I'm sorry. Just the click of the door behind her. I stood there in the sudden, overwhelming silence of my apartment. The apartment we had decorated together. The couch we picked out. The prints on the wall we argued about and then agreed on. Everything was a reminder of the lie. I walked into the bedroom. Her side of the closet was half empty, the hangers like little skeletons. Her jewelry box was gone. Her favorite pillow. The small, mundane things that made a home were vanishing. I sat on the edge of the bed and the tears came again. But this time, they weren't tears of shock or heartbreak. They were tears of rage. Rage at her, at myself for being so blind, at the sheer injustice of it all. $30,000. 3 years. My trust. All gone. The next few weeks were a blur of pain and practicalities. I changed the locks. I closed the joint account, though there was nothing left to save. I contacted a lawyer. His name was Mr. Kowalski, a no-nonsense man in his 60s with a kind face and a sharp mind. I sat in his office, which smelled of old books and leather, and told him the whole story. He listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting down a note. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. This is an unusual case, Mark. The legal term for what she did is theft. Plain and simple. You had a joint account, but the funds were marital assets in waiting, and she misappropriated them for a purpose entirely outside the scope of your agreement. We can sue her for the money. Will I get it back? I asked, the hope in my voice sounding pathetic even to me. He gave me a sad, honest smile. That depends. You can't get blood from a stone. If she and this new husband don't have the money, a judgment is just a piece of paper. But we can try. We can also name him in the suit, as he was the beneficiary of the theft. It'll put a lien on any assets they have. It won't be quick, and it won't be easy, but it's a start. We filed the lawsuit. It was a public record, and that's when things really started to explode. I got served with a countersuit from David Evans, Elena's new husband. He was suing me for intentional infliction of emotional distress and harassment. His claim was that I was a bitter, jealous ex who was trying to ruin his new marriage with frivolous lawsuits. The audacity was staggering. He was painting himself as the victim. The stress was immense. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I lost 10 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. My work suffered. My boss, a kind woman named Sarah, pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. I broke down and told her everything. She was incredibly supportive, giving me some time off and telling me to take care of myself. But the damage was done. The constant worry, the legal fees, the emotional turmoil, it was eating me alive. I started going to therapy. It was Dr. Miller, a soft-spoken woman with calming presence. She helped me untangle the mess of emotions I was drowning in. The anger, the betrayal, the profound sense of humiliation. You're grieving, Mark, she told me one session. You're grieving the loss of the person you thought she was, the future you thought you had, and the part of yourself you invested in that illusion. It's a real loss, and it needs to be grieved. She also helped me see the pattern, the red flags I'd ignored, the way Elena had always been a little self-centered, the way our plans always seemed to revolve around her schedule, her needs, her dreams, the way she'd subtly chip away at my confidence, making me feel lucky to have her. I wasn't just a victim of her betrayal. I was a participant in my own emotional neglect. It was a hard pill to swallow, but it was necessary. Meanwhile, the story was spreading. Through mutual friends, through social media, people were taking sides. Some of our mutual friends reached out to me, offering support. Others, like Chloe who posted the wedding photos, unfriended me and blocked me. I heard through the grapevine that Elena was telling people I was abusive, that I was controlling, that she had to escape the relationship and David was her savior. She was rewriting history, casting herself as the hero of her own story and me as the villain. The first time I saw them in public was about 2 months after she left. I was at a grocery store, picking up a sad, single-person dinner. I turned down an aisle, and there they were, Elena and David. They were laughing, pushing a cart full of organic produce and expensive wine. She looked happy, genuinely happy. It was like a knife to the heart. She saw me, and her smile froze. David looked at me, and his expression hardened into a sneer. He put a protective arm around her and whispered something in her ear. They turned their cart around and walked away without a word. I stood there, gripping my basket so hard my knuckles turned white, feeling like the floor had opened up beneath me again. That encounter sent me into a tailspin. I went home and I just broke. I threw a glass against the wall. I punched a pillow until I was exhausted. I screamed into the empty apartment. All the progress I'd made in therapy felt like it was gone. The rage was back, hotter and more consuming than before. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the casual cruelty of it. The way she could just move on, seemingly unscathed, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. The legal battle dragged on. Depositions were scheduled. I had to sit in a room with Elena and her lawyer and answer invasive questions about our relationship, our finances, my mental state. It was humiliating. She sat across from me, looking polished and composed in a sharp blazer. When our eyes met, there was nothing there. No guilt, no sadness, no flicker of recognition for the 3 years we'd shared. I was a stranger to her, an obstacle to be overcome. Her testimony was a masterpiece of revisionist history. She claimed we were already broken up when she reconnected with David. She said I was emotionally distant and that she'd felt trapped. She said the $30,000 was compensation for the years she'd spent supporting my career and putting her own on hold. She made me sound like a monster. Listening to her, I started to doubt my own reality. Had I been that bad? Was I the one who was blind? My lawyer was brilliant. He calmly and methodically tore apart her story. He presented our text messages from the week of the wedding, where she was still calling me babe and love and talking about our future. He presented bank statements showing the bulk of the savings had come from my salary. He presented photos of us, happy and in love, from just weeks before the wedding. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of her lies. I saw her composure crack. I saw the panic flicker in her eyes. For the first time, I saw fear. David Evans was even worse. He came across as arrogant and entitled. Under oath, he admitted he was aware Elena was engaged to me when they reconnected. He admitted they'd been seeing each other for months before the wedding. He claimed it was just a friendship that blossomed into love. When asked about the $30,000, he said it was a gift from his wife to start their new life together. He had no idea it was from a joint account. He was just a grateful husband. His performance was so slick, so practiced, it made my skin crawl. The lawsuit wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the truth. It was about standing up and saying, "No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to steal my life and my money and my dignity and just walk away without a fight." It became my mission. Months passed. The legal process was agonizingly slow. There were hearings, motions, delays. My legal bills were piling up. I had to take on extra freelance work, spending my nights and weekends writing code for extra cash. I was exhausted, physically and emotionally. But I kept going. The alternative, just letting them win, was unthinkable. Then, one day, I got a call from my lawyer. His voice was different. There was an energy in it I hadn't heard before. "Mark, I've got something," he said. "Something big." "What is it?" I asked, my heart starting to race. "I hired a private investigator, just to dig a little deeper into Mr. David Evans and his real estate empire. It turns out, the empire is a house of cards. The guy is a fraud. He's been investigated by the State Real Estate Commission multiple times for shady deals. He's got judgments against him from previous business partners. He's broke, Mark, or close to it. That fancy life he portrays on social media, it's all leased, rented, or borrowed. His car is leased. His apartment is in Elena's name because his credit is so bad. And the venue for the wedding? They haven't paid the full bill yet. The rustic Rose Barn is about to put a lien on them. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So the $30,000 was likely used to pay off some of his more pressing debts, maybe to put a down payment on that leased car and to fund the wedding. He's a con artist, Mark. And it looks like he might have conned your ex-fiancée just as much as he's tried to con everyone else. Or she's in on it. Either way, this changes everything. This new information was a game changer. My lawyer immediately filed a motion to compel discovery of David's financial records. He fought it, of course, but the judge ruled in our favor. What we found was damning. Credit card debt, unpaid loans, a history of bounced checks. The man was a financial disaster. The $30,000 was a lifeline for him, and Elena had been the means to get it. I don't know if Elena knew the full extent of his financial situation before she married him. Maybe she was blinded by love, or by the idea of the life she thought he could give her. Or maybe she was a willing participant in his schemes. I'll never know for sure. But what I do know is that the fairy tale she'd sold herself started to crumble very quickly. A few weeks after this new evidence came to light, I got an email from Elena. It was the first time she'd contacted me directly since the night she left. The subject line was simply, "Please read." The email was long and rambling. It started with, "I'm sorry." It went on to explain that she'd made a terrible mistake. That David wasn't who she thought he was. That he'd lied to her about his finances, about his past, about everything. That the cosmic pull she'd felt was just him love-bombing her, telling her everything she wanted to hear. She said the marriage was a disaster. They were fighting constantly. He was controlling and verbally abusive. She was miserable, and she wanted to come back. She wrote, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm lost, Mark. I'm so lost. You were always my safe place. You were the one person who truly loved me. And I threw it all away for a fantasy. I think about us every day. I think about the future we planned, the house, the kids. I think about your laugh, the way you'd make me coffee in the morning. I miss you. I miss us. Please, can we just talk? Please. I read the email 3 times. Each time, a different emotion surfaced. First, a flicker of vindication. She was miserable. Good. She deserved it. Then, a wave of sadness. This was the woman I loved, broken and desperate. Then, a cold, hard resolve. No, I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. The bridge wasn't just burned. It had been nuked from orbit. The person I loved was gone. The woman who wrote that email was a stranger, someone capable of immense cruelty and then, when it suited her, immense self-pity. I couldn't be her safety net again. I couldn't be her plan B. The lawsuit continued. With the new evidence of David's fraud, his countersuit was quickly dismissed. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Elena and David to repay the $30,000, plus interest and a portion of my legal fees. It was a moral victory, a legal acknowledgement that I had been wronged. But collecting the money was another matter. They had nothing. The judgment was just a piece of paper. But something strange happened. Once the legal battle was over, a weight lifted off my shoulders. The constant fight, the stress, the obsession, it all started to fade. I had stood up for myself. I had fought back. And in a way, I had won. I hadn't gotten the money back, but I had gotten my self-respect back. And that was worth more than $30,000. I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I started going to the gym regularly, not to get revenge body ready, but because it made me feel strong and healthy. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected. I picked up old hobbies I'd abandoned, like playing the guitar and hiking. I started to remember who I was before Elena. And I realized I kind of liked that guy. Work got better. With a clearer head, I was more focused and productive. My boss noticed and gave me a promotion and a raise. It was a small but significant validation. Life was moving forward. About a year after the split, I met someone. Her name was Chloe. Not the Chloe from the wedding, a different Chloe. It was at a friend's barbecue. She was laughing at something, and the sound was so warm and genuine, it drew me in. We started talking, and it was easy. It was natural. There was no game playing, no manipulation, no walking on eggshells. She was an artist, a painter, with a quirky sense of humor and a kind heart. She knew about my past, about Elena and the lawsuit. I was open about it from the start. I didn't want any secrets. Our relationship was different. It was built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. We communicated. We argued, but we never fought dirty. We supported each other's dreams. When I looked at her, I didn't see a future I was desperately trying to build. I saw a present I was happy to live in. She taught me that love wasn't supposed to be a constant state of anxiety and effort. It was supposed to be a safe harbor. I heard about Elena through the grapevine occasionally. The marriage to David didn't last. It imploded spectacularly about 6 months after the lawsuit ended. There were rumors of infidelity, of financial fraud, of a restraining order. It was all very dramatic and very sad. She moved back to her hometown, a broken and humbled woman. I felt a pang of pity for her, but it was distant, like sympathy for a character in a movie. It no longer had the power to hurt me. 2 years after Elena left, I proposed to Chloe. It wasn't a grand, orchestrated gesture. It was a quiet moment, just the two of us, on a hike at sunset. I got down on one knee and asked her to be my wife. She cried and said yes. And in that moment, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. This was real. This was right. We planned a small wedding. We paid for it ourselves, with money we'd saved together. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't funded by anyone's pain. It was just a celebration of love, surrounded by the people who truly cared about us. I still think about the $30,000 sometimes. It's a lot of money. It would have been a nice down payment on a house. But I don't dwell on it. The experience taught me something invaluable. Money can be replaced. Time can't. Trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild. But the most important thing I learned is that your own self-worth cannot be contingent on someone else's treatment of you. Elena tried to destroy me, but she didn't succeed. I rebuilt myself, brick by brick, and I built something stronger. I saw Elena one last time. It was about a year after Chloe and I got married. I was in my hometown for a funeral, a sad occasion. I was getting coffee at a local shop, and I saw her sitting at a table by herself, staring out the window. She looked older, tired. The light had gone out of her eyes. She saw me, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt nothing. She was a ghost from a past life. I gave her a small, polite nod. She started to smile, a tentative, hopeful smile, and opened her mouth as if to speak. But I didn't give her the chance. I turned, got my coffee, and walked out. I didn't look back. That was the moment I knew I was truly free. The story was over. The chapter was closed. I had moved on, not just in life, but in my heart. The betrayal would always be a part of my history, a scar on my soul. But scars aren't weaknesses. They're proof that you survived. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more real-life stories. Remember, your worth is not determined by someone else's inability to see it. Take care of yourselves.